On this edition of Region Sports Desk, we're going to go over all the sectional championship games, not only Northwest Indiana, but we'll also go over a few of the key games around the state, including a certain game that's going to take place in Carmel this Friday night.
Because at this stage of the season, every game is a big game.
Welcome to Region Sports Desk. It is sectional championship week. We're down to just 6 Northwest Indiana teams. We're going to cut that in half after this Friday night. You go back to last week. What stood out to you last week? You were at the Hobart Stop in Washington game. The Panthers look like they could be the representative in the 4A North with what you saw last week?
In some regards, yes. I tell you what, I thought David Perkins put together a heck of an effort. Did not have many touches, but over 200 yards of offense for the win for the Panthers. Garrett Dieter had a typical game for him, but on the downside, yeah, they built up a huge lead, but they had 100 yards of penalties in the first half. Despite that, Hope put together a very good effort. Very young ball club. I think the future is very bright for Ryan's early ball club. But other than that, it was a very, I guess you could say, things went the way we expected them to. Probably with the one exception, North Newton getting a huge win on the road, knocking out the Bremen Forest Indians last week. But and also Crown Point using their defense. Of course, we talked about that all season long, only giving up 10 points in the win against Valparaiso. They've only been giving up 10 points a year, and they sent Mark Hoffman into retirement. But other than that, it sets the stage, and this is, from here on out, JT, we play for a trophy from here on out every Friday night. It doesn't get any better than this.
Let's start things off in Class A Sectional 33. Of course, all of our Northwest Indiana participants were eliminated in Week 1. South Newton traveling to Culver Community. South Newton, I think we might have seen them as a slight favorite heading into the sectional, but you know what? Culver's really turned it on the last few weeks.
Yeah, there's one main problem, I think, though, for Culver coming this game. Looking at their schedule, they play a good schedule, obviously, Northern State Conference, but you look up and down the roster, I don't think they have seen a spread team the entire season. I'm not sure if Knox runs it anymore. They had, when Steve Snodgrass was there, they were a spread team, but with Terry Chesterich over there, they're probably more of a traditional option team with him being a former Chesterich assistant. So that, I think, is going to be a major decrement for Randy Thomas to the Cavaliers. South Newton loves to fling it all over the place. Only team to beat them this year was Pioneer. They've scored 75 points in 2 tournament games. And also Chris Bell, a win away from 100. I think he gets it done Friday night at Culver. South Newton will win this game on the road and then have the happy-go-lucky task of facing Lafayette Central Catholic next week, which I believe on the plus side they would be home for that matchup in Kentland, and that will be it for the Rounders. But still a great run for South Newton. Good run. They're going to win a sectional championship, which would be their first in 5 years.
Well, I think this has potential to be a good game. And let's keep in mind, Culver's been in this situation over the last few years, and I think Culver's got a shot here. I think the fact that they host the game, I like the way they've been playing lately. They avenged the loss they had in Week 1 to West Central. They beat them last Friday night. I think Culver has the tools to make this an ugly game, and with them playing at home, I'm going to take Culver on the upset. I'm going to say Culver upsets South Newton at home. Very close game. I'll take Culver.
Outside of last year, here's something interesting. Outside of last year for South Newton, where they went 1-9, they have won 7 or more games every year since 05, with the exception of last year.
That's pretty impressive.
And of course, that includes a trip to the semi-state in 2006.
Let's move up to 2A, Sectional 25. A little bit of an upset last week. North Newton defeats River Forest. A lot of us thought River Forest would be in this game. turns out North Newton went on the road, took care of business. They avenged the loss they had earlier in the season against River Forest.
What doomed Andrean against Wheeler?
What's that?
What doomed Andrean against Wheeler?
Turnovers.
That's what did in River Forest last week. I guess 4 turnovers in the first half, and they just could not catch up to the Spartans last week. But give credit to North Newton. They played their best ball at the tail end of the season. They were 1-5. They won 5 games in a row. So give kudos to North Newton. Really shucking out the kind of maybe that opening round win over Boone Grove. They might have maybe looking ahead a little bit, but Pat Brown's done a nice job. But now we're going to have to take on the Wheeler Bearcats. 49-0. First meeting in Morocco back in week 4. It's probably going to be more of the same, I think, this week.
Well, I think what is really, I'll tell you what's impressed me about Wheeler the last 2 weeks. Of course, their offense, they've only scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games, 2 offensive touchdowns, that is. But they are showing that they can win games in a variety of different ways. That it's not just the 50-point blowout games that we're used to seeing. They've shown that they can grind out wins. Last week was a grinded-out game. They kind of beat Rensselaer at their own game. You know, they kind of took what the defense was giving them. They were throwing the dink and dunk passes. They were running the football. They were just managing the game, and they're able to win a close 14-7 matchup. I think that's going to bode well for them. I think this game's going to be great for Wheeler because they can get their offense going again. And it's another week for Nick Nispinski to kind of get the rust off a little bit.
And how big was for him coming back last week too?
Oh, it's huge. I think it was huge for the psyche of the team. And he missed a few throws, but there was also some passes he threw that should have been caught that weren't caught. And I think this game here is going to help Wheeler. I think just get a 4 or 5 touchdown lead, get your starters out of the game, get ready for the regional. This shouldn't be a problem at all for Wheeler.
You would think.
Well, I know because I bust this out. You know it's all over. I'm telling you right now, Wheeler's going to roll, no problems. North Newton will be lucky to score more than a touchdown in this game. Wheeler should win this game with ease, and they're gonna host the regional. No matter who wins in Sectional 26, Wheeler will be at home for the regional contest.
And also it will be the second ever sectional championship in school history for football.
I want to touch on Sectional 26 a little bit. Certainly Bremen undefeated. They've had a great season. You look at some of their key wins. They defeated John Glenn, Jimtown.
Yes, they defeated everybody.
Well, but I mean, when you look at the notable wins, I think those wins are...
They beat Plymouth. Now, granted, Plymouth did not have a typical year, but still, anytime a 2A can beat a 4A school, that's always a good thing. They beat Jimtown. Enough said. Jimtown's still alive. Glenn gave Mishawaka Marian all they wanted last week. And they're going to be taking on a Cass team that traditionally has been a very solid program over the last decade, but this year they were under 500. They were 0-4 out of the gate. But you look at those 4 losses to open the season. Pioneer, West Lafayette, Northwestern, and Hamilton Heights. 3 of those 4 schools still played. A 4th would still be played if we see these gosh darn sectionals.
Well, and Western's still playing too.
And indeed, who's another loss for them as well. This could be an interesting game, but Bremen, you talk about facilities in Northwest Indiana back in the glory days. I'm talking about the late 80s and for the better part of the 90s when Bremen was the power statewide. There was not one of the more intimidating places to play for an opponent was Don Bungie Field there in Bremen. They love their football. They're very intensive. There have been a great rivalry game there between Bremen and Jimtown, but Cass, it's been pretty good, but I think Bremen's schedule is a little bit better, plus the experience as well of been there, done that. Their team's on a mission from losing in a heartbreaker last year in the regional to Rensselaer in overtime. This Bremen team's on a mission, and I think this team has a great shot to get to the Final Four in 2A.
Well, I watched them on film. I've watched both of these teams on film. I think last week's game, Cass played an exceptional game against Rochester. Rochester had a pretty good season. Mm-hmm. And really, other than they have one long pass play. Lewis Cass basically shut down their run game, the whole ball game. Bremen is one of those teams that they run a lot of multiple sets. They're very balanced. I think what impresses me about them, they're very balanced, and they're equally as good at throwing the ball as they are at running the football. and that's going to be that's going to be danger for Cass. I think for Cass to have a chance to win this game, they got to take the Rensselaer mentality. They got to just put the air out of the ball,
short the ball game up.
Yeah. Eat up the clock with those long consuming drives, with that wing tee offense. I think they can make this a game. I think they can lower the point total a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, I still think Bremen is the better team. Playing at home is going to help them. I think it's going to be a close game, closer than a lot of people will think. But I'll take Bremen to win this game as well. You got Churubusco taking on Luers. Churubusco's undefeated. They've had a nice season. Luers, they're credited with a 9-1 record. They didn't lose the game, but it was a forfeited game. Do you think that there's any chance that Churubusco can put a scare into the Knights a little bit?
Well, the thing that Churubusco made it semi-state last year in 1A. And a decent amount of players back. They lost their standout rusher from last year, was about a 2,500-yard rusher. But they ran into a buzzsaw named Lafayette Central Catholic last year in the semi-state. This year, they're going to run into a buzzsaw in the sectional final with Bishop Luers. And you look at it last week, Madison Grant only winning that game by 28-20. They've also had their struggles this year, an 18-14 win over Culver Academy. No slight against those schools, but Churubusco now stepping up a couple classes against a team that can very easily win the 3A championship and would be competitive in 4A and 5A. Luers is going to win this one big.
I think I have to agree with that statement. The schedule plays a big part of it, and certainly I think when you look at the athletes, Churubusco just doesn't have the athletes to match up with the athletes on Bishop Luers' squad. That's going to be a big factor. Luers will host this game, and just when you look at what Churubusco's done this year has been impressive. They're not dominating every team they play, like you said. I mean, they kind of had a squeaker against Madison Grant. They barely beat Culver Academy. I think they had a 7-point win over Lakeland. They just don't. I don't think they have enough offense to be able to put the air out of the ball and to slow down Luers. I don't think they can do it. I think Luers will win this game pretty handily as well.
I think one other matchup we should talk about in 2A here would be one in Sectional 32. You have Evansville, Modern Day, and Southridge. This has turned into a good postseason rivalry. You look at recent years, Southridge has actually won 2 of the last 3 matchups from Modern Day, including last year. Modern Day finally getting the win count 28-21 to sectional final. But you look before that in 2008, Southridge knocked out Modern Day. In 2007, they knocked out Modern Day in overtime as well. So they're kind of a Rensselaer team, a smash mouth team, short of the ball game type. Modern Day is a spread team as well. It's going to be a heck of a game down south, but I think Modern Day will get the job done. And again, I think, we talk, give me that cheesehead for a second. I want to do this year. This is my cheesehead lock of the year, Lafayette Central Catholic. Duh. Here's your other lock. Luers, Modern Day, collision course in 4 weeks. Sorry, Wheeler. Sorry, Bremen. Sorry, everybody else in 2A, but it's a lock.
Really? North Putnam doesn't have a shot in a couple weeks? They get there?
Don't forget, Modern Day lost to them very shorthanded last year. They had a couple of key starters out with injuries, too. Don't forget.
Well, we'll see about that. I think that semi-state, if it happens, Modern Day, when they play North Putnam, that could be a great ball game. Look at what North Putnam's done in the playoffs. They beat a pretty good Ritter team last week.
Yeah, they had to outscore them a bit. But you look at the schedule Modern Day has played. Now, let's be honest. They're an overtime away from being undefeated themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They're basically the Luers for 4 win.
If Modern Day plays Luers in the state championship, that could be the best state championship game out of all 5 classes if it happens. I'm with you with Modern Day. I don't think they'll have much trouble. I think they are superior.
It'll be a better game than you think, but Modern Day will win.
Well, let's jump up to 3A, Sectional 17. This was the matchup that I think we both assumed would happen. Mishawaka, Marian, South Bend, St. Joe, Holy War Part 2. And remember, the first edition, Marian came away with a victory against St. Joe the first time around. But this time, they got to go on the road and play at St. Joe.
Technically, they have to go on the road. They are the road team, but did you know Marian and St. Joe share the same field?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so they are the road team, but in a sense, they're not the road team.
You're being serious? They really do? I did not know they shared.
For the most part, South Bend St. Joe for many years has played their home games at Marian unless they go deeper in the playoffs and they kind of go closer to the campus in South Bend.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you told me that because I was not aware of that.
Now I'm not sure. They're not sure if they're going to play this game at Marian. They might because I'm going to check and see here. South Bend Washington's home, right? So chances are they will be playing this game at Marian because I would think Washington will probably be playing at school field, I think, on Friday night. But the first matchup, 25-21, the Marian Knights were to win. But don't forget, too, last year, Marian beat St. Joe's in the regular season, but then St. Joe's turned the trick in the postseason and then made that great run to Indianapolis. I think it's deja vu all over again. I think St. Joe's gets their revenge. Nice win for Marian last week as they ended the career of Josh Anderson, I should say, and the Glen Falcons. But I just think St. Joe 9-2, looking to avenge that loss. Also a 3-touchdown loss to Penn earlier this season. And this is a team that really, for all practical purposes, they got a break in their half of the draw with wins over Luers and Culver Academy. I think they're going to be slightly healthier, and I think it's going to be a difference for the Indians to get it done and win another Sectional championship. And I predicted 2 weeks ago, JT, winner of this game is going to represent the North in 3A down at Lucas Oil.
Well, I'm with you as far as that goes. I know at the beginning of the playoffs, I think I said Marian would represent 3A. I picked them at the beginning. I got to stick with the pick, although I will say I'm very worried about that pick. I'd say it's in great jeopardy because I think St. Joe has really turned it on last part of the season. I think if Marian is to win this game, it's going to be a very, very close contest. I think this game could go either way, but I do think these are the two best teams in the North in 3A this season. So I'm going to stick with the Marian pick, but I'll say it's going to be a very, very close margin. Let's jump up to 4A. We'll start Sectional 10. Mishawaka and South Bend, Washington. A rematch from a couple weeks ago, last week of the regular season, and that was a game that Washington just had their way with Mishawaka. I was impressed with what I saw from Mishawaka in the opening round of sectionals against Lowell. It looked like their offense was clicking, and their defense was giving up 29 points a game, but their defense is very, very stout. I think this is going to be a much better game than the first time around.
Well, you have to figure, when teams play, especially really close the second time around, the gap closes up considerably. You look at what happened last week with Merrillville and Chesterton. Merrillville had all sorts of yardage the first time, and then they came within a fourth and goal play in overtime of not advancing this week. 37-13 the first time. The key thing with Washington, last week, 14 penalties. They had about 100 yards of penalties last week in the first half. They ended up with just under 400 yards. They really took their foot off the accelerator in the second half when the game was pretty much over at 35-3 there in the third quarter. I was really impressed with David Perkins. Also, the Morgan kid at quarterback threw 4 touchdown passes last week, and he threw to 3 different receivers as well. I think for Mishawaka, it's going to be the same plan. They're going to have to try to pound it out, shorten that ball game. I think Mishawaka is definitely going to make it a closer game, but I just think Washington has got too many weapons offensively, and I think South of Washington is going to add a long sectional drought. They will win Friday night. It would be their first sectional title since before you were born. I was only 3 years old. 1977 was the last time the Panthers and the Kelly Green and White were able to lay claim to a sectional championship. And you know who? I can't remember. I was going to say they would be lost to Portage, but that would have been the 3-0 game, I think, for Portage over Merrillville that year. I could quickly look that up here the last time they won a sectional championship because I have that. Because it's pretty prepared. I have my clip notes on my computer and everything there. Yes, it was Portage who knocked them out in 1977 in the regional championship game.
Really?
14-7. And of course, the sectional, the championship in Northwest Indiana, Portage 3, Merrillville nothing. Was, in my opinion, the greatest playoff game ever played in Northwest Indiana.
I wish I was around to see that. No,
of course, I was here. Portage won state too.
Yeah. So back to the topic at hand. This is.
I digress.
I agree. I think this is going to be a closer game this time around. I think Washington is a team that kind of depends on the big play. This isn't just a team that kind of will take 5-6 yard plays. They go for the jugular.
Well, I mean, look at the score plays they had last week.
So I mean, for Mishawaka to have a chance, they're going to have to force Southland Washington to drive the length of the field, not give up those big plays. I think they're susceptible to those plays. They just don't have enough speed. They don't have the speed that Washington has. They're going to have to kind of take the air out of the ball themselves, have some long scoring drives, and try do their best to not give up big plays, force Washington to just grind it out with them. But I think the problem is Washington has a lot of weapons. They just if their quarterback is on, if he's on his game, it's going to be really tough to beat them. Washington, the Mishawaka's have to get a pass rush to put some pressure because that's really the only way I could see stopping this offense. But I do think Washington's the superior team. 37-13, that score doesn't lie. Washington is just that much better of a football team. They've got better athletes. I see Washington winning this game, and they're going to be playing one of our region friends in the regional, and I think that's going to be an exciting matchup, whoever they play. But let's go to Sectional 9, and I think this is the game that everybody in Northwest Indiana is looking forward to. I think this is the most anticipated matchup that we've had this season. Really, ever since week 1, everybody was saying, well, let's wait till they play in sectionals. And lucky enough, they were on the opposite side of the bracket, and they can meet in the championship game. It's going to be at Morton. We're also going to be broadcasting that game on Mid-America Broadcasting. I know we're expecting a huge crowd over there, so if you can't make it there, make sure you listen to us.
You, me, and Clark coach Tim Galt on the call, which is really interesting because he's coached against both of these teams this year.
Well, it'll be interesting to
good for a unique perspective.
Yeah, I want to hear what his perspective is on both of these teams, seeing as he has coached against them, and I'm sure he'll have a lot of insight to bring to the table. I see you have on your screen the first matchup in week 1, 21-14. Morton got out of there with a victory, but didn't Griffith have a couple chances?
No, it was 21-7. Morton made a key stop midway through the fourth quarter. We're about 5 minutes left to stop Griffith on the 4th and goal. And then I want to say 2 plays after that, they tried to run an option play. Chris McCormick, the quarterback, made a errant pitch. Griffith recovered in the end zone for a touchdown to get within 7. And then with under 2 minutes left, with Morton trying to maintain a lead, and I know we got a lot of Morton fans and a lot of Morton players that will have access. I'm still puzzled by the play call when you're trying to pass with a lead late in the ball game. Griffith tipped the ball, and it was made an interception, but thankfully for the Morton fans and the Governors, they were able to get a 4 and out to preserve the victory that time. I really thought Griffith was very vanilla in their game offensively. They only put up 197 yards, and I think that's their low watermark of the season as far as yardage. That was the first start from Austin Brown. 27 carries, but did not break 70 yards. But again, I don't think they showed much. Griffith this year, in the games they have lost, have struggled to put points on the board, and they've struggled to put yardage on the board. You look at it, they lost to Morton. They were under 200 yards. They lost to Andrean. They barely broke 200 yards. And at one point in that game, late in the second half, they had more yards passing than rushing against that Andrean. Of course, Andrean, we thought, had the best defense going into the postseason, and probably are still the best defense, even though they've been done for a couple of weeks as well. And against Lowell, they were able to move the ball, but a couple of ill-timed turnovers really duped them in that loss.
They struggled in the red zone.
Yes, indeed. And they lost 18-13. Morton, I think their big issue when you look at the Governors, they've been a little banged up in the second half of the regular season and also the first round of the playoffs. And I got to give credit to East Chicago really hanging tough with the Governors last week, leaving it all on the field, and Morton getting a late insurance touchdown and a late turnover to really put away the Cardinals for good 1 week ago. This is going to be an interesting matchup, and don't forget, Morton has a nice little win streak going on against Griffith. I want to say they won 4 games in a row going back to the 2009 season. So this is going to be a heck of a matchup. I don't know how it's going to turn out. This might be one of those, it might be a coin flip game, but I just think Griffith has had struggles in the games he lost, putting yardage on the board, and I think Morton defensively is very underrated defensively. They're not as explosive as they were offensively the last couple of years, but I think Morton finds a way to make a couple of key stops defensively, and I think in an epic game, Morton 28-21.
It's going to be the game of the year, I think, and I think this game will come down to the last possession. Whoever has the ball last is going to have the best chance to win. I look at 2 key factors for both teams. I think as far as Griffith goes offensively, they've got to make Morton defend more than 5 yards of the field. Between the left guard and the right guard, I mean, they have to mix things up offensively. They've got to stretch the perimeter a little bit with their running game and force Morton to defend more field. Because a lot of their offense is predicated on fullback handoffs, a lot of fakes to the fullback and following them up the middle. They have to open things up in this game, and they have to get more players involved. Kind of like what I said with the Andrean game, I thought that Griffith had to get their wingbacks involved, mix it up, not be so predictable.
You know who has stepped up big the last 3 weeks for Griffith? Brett Brinkley. It's been huge. He has been a touchdown machine the last couple of weeks.
Well, no question about it. Though, they have to get everybody involved so they're not so predictable, and they're going to have to complete some passes too because Morton's defense is very good, especially against the run. So they're going to have to mix things up a little bit if they want to move the ball consistently. And I think for Morton, it's going to come down to the right arm of Chris McCormick being able to complete some passes of his own. Griffith's run defense is excellent, and Morton's going to have to open it up, and they're going to have some favorable matchups on the outside. With Robert House and Alfred Dickey.
And House had 2 touchdown catches in that first matchup too, way back when.
So Chris McCormick's going to have to be accurate on the money. He's going to have to complete some passes in this game. I think he will. He was talking in the paper a few weeks ago about they're getting ready to play semi-state. Well, you know what, McCormick, this comes down to you. I think it's going to come down to if he can complete passes and be accurate. If he can do that, Morton's going to win this game. But if he struggles throwing the football and Griffith sends pressure and he can't get it done, Griffith's going to have a good chance. I think it's going to be a close game. This could come down to even a 2-point conversion play. I think Morton playing at home, I think they want it. They want it badly. They still have a ton of talent. I think Morton's going to win this game, but I wouldn't be shocked if Griffith won either. I think this could go either way, but I think Morton is a hair bit better than Griffith.
I'll say this about Griffith. This is probably the best defensive team they've fielded in a number of years, man. You probably have to go back to the dominant team in 2005, where a lot of the Griffith fans will tell you was probably a team better than the state championship team in 1997, and had a 10-0 lead in the semi-state and couldn't hang on against Northwood, a Cinderella Northwood team that would go on and win the state championship. Anytime you can play defense, you give yourself an opportunity. I mean, go back a couple weeks ago in Andrean. Yeah, they lost the game, but their defense put them in a position to try to win the game. And you give them only 20 yards for a game. More often than not, you're going to win. It's just that because you couldn't hang on to the ball. Griffith did a good job. They did get a couple of takeaways in that first matchup. They're going to need 2 to 3, I think, for them to be in position here. And that's another thing, too, against Andrean. Yeah, they struggled to put yardage together, put drives together. They only put together one drive that resulted in a missed field goal against Andrean. But really, their 2 scores against Andrean were set up by their defense, giving them very short fields to work with. So they're going to have to play great defense again and be opportunistic on offense to be able to cash in on their opportunities, because they may not have a lot of opportunities. And that goes for Morton as well, too. They may not have a lot of opportunities offensively as well, because Griffith is probably, we talked about Andrean, we talked about Crown Point, but Griffith's right there, one of the top defensive teams in the area this year.
Well, I think one thing you have to keep in mind, since that Week 1 matchup, I think Griffith has improved tremendously, especially offensively. I think Austin Brown has made a lot of people forget about what Calvin Bonowitz did in his career, because Austin Brown's had a tremendous season ever since that ball game. and you look at points scored for the most part, their offense has been very, very good the second half of the season. So they've been able to put up points. That hasn't been a problem. So that
outside
is
of the games they lost, though. That's
yeah,
the key.
I mean, they struggled against Andrean, no question about it. We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to this game. I've been looking forward to this game since the first week of the season. I knew it was going to happen.
It's very simple. Here's your number, 20. Every time Griffith scores at least 20 points, they win. When they don't win. It's that simple.
Having said that, let's move up to Sectional 1.
In the underrated game of the week.
I know, this would be like the undercard. Crown Point at Merrillville. Of course, you were at the first meeting of the season between these two teams, and wow, wasn't that a classic?
One of the best game ending drives I've ever seen at any level, period. When, and really you think about it, that was probably that 4.5 minute drive that really, to come to think of it, probably saved Merrillville's season. Because if they don't get that drive, you're looking at 0-3, and who knows what could happen the rest of the season. Now, I know they lost to Morton the following week, but they have been a completely different team since. But when you get an 0-3, you don't know how much longer you're going to be able to keep the kids or whatnot together, to keep their attention or focus or whatnot. But I really thought that 18-play, 80-yard drive to cover behind, to beat Crown Point the first time, really saved the Pirates' season.
Oh, it certainly did, and yeah, they've been a completely different team. I think offensively they've been a lot better the last few weeks, and certainly with the addition of Dylan Collins, that also has to help. He's been a monster, but last week they got in a shootout with Chesterton, and I think we see how much better Chesterton is when they have their starting quarterback. But that was just a track meet, and Merrillville is fortunate enough to win that game. Crown Point, obviously their defense has been the key to their success over the course of the season. And of course they ended Mark Hoffman's career last Friday night with their backup quarterback, no less.
And Jake Jadis.
Yeah, Jadis is going to start again. I think I think it's going to be a matchup of how can Crown Point's defense slow down Merrillville's offense. I don't think Crown Point's going to be able to score 3 or 4 touchdowns offensively to win this game. They have to make it an ugly game like they had last week against Valpo if they want to win this game. Can they slow down this Pirates offense that seems to have been unstoppable over the last few weeks?
Well, they gave up over 400 yards of offense in the first meeting, and Merrillville dominated in time of possession, 23 first downs for Merrillville in that game. Really, you think about it, the difference in the game was a missed extra point by Brett Bayer with a Crown Point score to go up with about 5 minutes left. Bayer missed the extra point, which opened the door for the Merrillville Pirates to go down and get the W, their first win in conference play. And really, the Merrillville run game from where they were the first 2 weeks of the season, where they struggled against Ward Central and then they struggled against Andrean. Daryl Pepper's now over 1,000 yards on the season, and the addition of Dylan Collins really, he is an X factor for Merrillville. I'm not sure, did Courtney Berry play? I don't think he played last week for Merrillville. Am I right or not?
I don't think he was playing.
I don't know if he's going to be available now. We know about his prowess defensively. In the first matchup, he had 7 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown for Merrillville in that game. I would feel better if Crown Point had Joe Hoppin in this game. Now, the young man stepped up and put together a very nice effort last week. Tristan Peterson has really come on strong here in the second half. And I think you're right. I think Crown Point's going to have to get this game stuck in the turf here. I can't say mud because it's going to be playing on artificial field turf. But I just think Merrillville, second time around, too many weapons, being at home this time. I think Merrillville finds a way to get it done. It should be a good game. Merrillville's one of only 3 teams to score over 20 points this year on Crown Point. They will score over 20 again this week. I look for Merrillville to win 24-7 to win another sectional championship.
I'm going to have to agree with pretty much everything you said. And I think 14 points is that key number. If Merrillville scores more than 14 points, I think they win. If Crown Point limits them to 2 touchdowns, I think they'll have a shot. I don't think Crown Point's offense, without their starting quarterback, is going to be good enough to put together enough scoring drives to be able to put up 20, 30 points, or whatever it's going to take to beat Merrillville. That's the big issue. I think Merrillville is playing their best ball at the right time, Certainly after the first 4 weeks of the season, I don't think any of us would have thought Merrillville could have had a turnaround and play as well as they played the last few games. But they're proving that they're still top, one of the top tier teams in Northwest Indiana. They will get the job done. They're going to beat Crown Point, and they're probably going to be traveling to Free Field next week. And of course, that's a familiar foe. They've played them plenty of times over the last decade. So I like Merrillville to beat Crown Point. I think one more game that we got to talk about, and of course, this is the game.
The 5A championship game in the sectional final.
Yeah, how messed up is that?
What happened at 1A?
Well, yeah. Sectional 5. It's a rematch. It's a game that we're used to seeing, and of course we've seen this matchup in the state finals a few times over the last few years. Warren Central at Carmel. First time around, Warren Central kicked a game-winning field goal as time ran out to defeat Carmel. They have a perfect record. Carmel's only loss was that game to Warren Central. These two teams are head and shoulders above everyone else in the state of Indiana. What's going to happen?
First matchup, Carmel was up 19-0 at Warren Central, or Warren Central was up 19-0. My apologies. Carmel came storming back to take lead. Warren Central kicked the field goal at the end. This time they had to go to Carmel, and this could go either way. I know Warren Central is loaded talent-wise. Here's the big key, and from the two times I saw, it wasn't really a factor against Merrillville, but in the other game I saw the Warriors on TV against Cathedral the week after, special teams could be huge, and the Warriors have had their issues at times this year, trying to get the ball to the punter in the return game, turnovers on special teams. They've done a pretty decent job. Now, granted, you can get away against North Central with Indianapolis Tech, but you can't make those mistakes against Carmel. I said a couple weeks ago I picked Carmel to win the state championship, like you picked Mishawaka Marian. I am sticking to my guns and picking Carmel to win Friday night. How about Kevin Wright getting a last laugh on his old team that he built into a dynasty, huh?
Well, that's what he's attempting to do, and yeah, he's got a good shot to do it. Talent alone doesn't win a state championship. You got to have the chemistry, and you got to have it in all three phases of the game, and that could come into play. But let's keep in mind, Warren Central did kick that field goal. They did make the field goal that beat Carmel the first time around. This. I'm a little worried myself because I went on record. I took Warren Central to win a state championship. I'm just as worried about this game as I am about Mishawaka Marian playing South Bend St. Joe for the second time. I think this is a game that could go either way. I think this game could be in the low 20s. This could be a 21-20 game, something like that. I do think the talent of Warren Central is going to be enough to beat Carmel. Very close game, and I wouldn't be shocked to see this come down to another last-second field goal.
Carmel has held Warren Central to their lowest point total this year. Carmel against practically the same competition is giving up 6 points a game fewer than Warren Central.
I think that's going to help with the game being played at Carmel too. It's going to be a packed house, probably more people at that game than will be at the 5A state championship. Is that a stretch?
I don't know. I'll be honest, when these teams played a couple years ago, when Carmel still thinks they got robbed, and let's not forget that factor too, may I remind you, JT.
Yeah.
Remember the 2009 state champion? Carmel, this is the first postseason meeting between these two. Now, they played it a little bit. So, you think there's a little bit of a crawl, a little bit extra motivation here for the Greyhounds? You think those seniors for this year who were sophomores on that team, they're going to be, I think that's another reason I think the Greyhounds are going to find a way to get it done here on Friday night at home. And, 2 years ago, these teams played. Carmel had a great crowd for a state championship game. The Warren Central crowd was non-existent. Warren Central fans, for some reason, they don't travel well on the road. So, if Carmel will have a huge
couple-mile trip to the Lucas Oil Stadium?
I'm telling you, 2 years ago, Warren Central for the 5A game probably barely had 2,000 people on their side.
I saw that. Yeah, I was sitting on I was on the Carmel side.
I was up in the booth with Steve Guidry and Hank Kylander. back then. It was a unique game to say the least. For a double overtime game, it was not a classic game, but let me tell you that.
I think this game will be more of a classic than that. And let's not remember, the winner of this game is going to have the inside track. But I will say, whoever wins this game, they're going to have a test in the regional the next week, because the winner of Avon Ben Davis might be able to give whoever a decent game. But that would be it. After that game, whoever wins will probably have a smooth sailing to state championship. But
I know you mentioned Ben Davis, Avon. Don't sell Avon short. And remember, I told you last week that Ben Davis had their issues with Brownsburg over the years, and they had to make a huge comeback and win in double overtime to defeat the Bulldogs.
Yeah, they did. And this game's going to be at Avon too, so yeah, that's going to be another good game. I think really those might be the four best teams right there, because Ben Davis and Avon. I know Avon's had a great year. Who did they lose to? Brownsburg?
I believe so.
So. It'll be interesting to see what happens this week.
Actually, Avon's only lost to Hammond and Southeastern. My apologies, but enough said.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens this week. I think we'll have some good matchups, and hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about next week, because we're going to have at least 3 region teams playing in regional.
Are you locked and loaded for Friday night?
I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm excited for this game. This is going to be the best game of the week, I think.
And again, if you can't make the Hessville on Friday, we'll be doing the game. Heck, if you're at the game, you can listen to us on the phone. You can download the app. Yeah, we'll be about 8 seconds behind the play, but you can listen to us in the stands too.
All right, well, that's it for us, and we'll see you on Friday.